The Blues will be delighted, and rightly so. All season we've been waiting to see if they were more than just a one-shot wonder.
Stu kind of reshaped the way wingers played in New Zealand. And then it was about, did you have the speed to beat a guy on the outside or chase a kick or maybe a sidestep? With Stu, it became about lines and angles.
Thoroughly agree. I tipped in the tipper comp that I have that I think I've managed to make up a bit of ground on thanks to the Broncos win on Saturday.
Oh, they're back, are they?
Did you watch that?
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. Me back from holiday. Thank you very much for stepping in, Lachlan, over the week. It's a rugby heavy day today, Monday. We're going to reflect on the life and times of the former All Black captain Stu Wilson, who sadly passed away on the weekend. Played 34 tests for New Zealand, scored 19 tries, and an absolute icon, a legend of Wellington rugby he was too. One half of that dynamic duo, Bernie Fraser and Stu, Ebony and Ivory. Tony Johnson from Sky Sport talk all about that, plus the 3 quarterfinals on the weekend. Look ahead to the semi-finals this weekend. And is the final system fair? Well, Brett McKay, rugby pass out of Canberra, probably doesn't think so. Brumbies playing away from home despite winning their quarterfinal. And the Chiefs losing, yet they still get to host a semi-final. Are the Crusaders now favourites to win it all? Because if they beat the Blues, they will host Super Rugby 2025's final in Christchurch. If you're listening on Rover, wherever you find your favourite podcasts, Spotify, Google, Apple Play, well, you get the full show, the full program we put out every afternoon here on the DSPN YouTube channel. We slice it and dice it down into more bite-sized chunks for you to consume at your leisure. We are so close to 7,000 subscribers now, just a handful, literally away from that. So if you can click that subscribe button for us, we would be most grateful. And then on we go, trying to get to 10,000 as soon as we possibly can. It's very important, this side of the microphone. It means that you get to continue to have all of this content for free. So what do we learn from the first finals weekend then of Super Rugby? We begin the show the same way every day.
Marty sermons brought to you by WebWonks. Generate online leads with WebWonks. Doctors for your Google data.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What do we learn then from the first finals weekend of Super Rugby 2025? That this newfangled 3-match quarterfinal system just about works. No, it's not perfect, but the Blues winning in Hamilton certainly saved it from being the farce many were arguing it was going to be. More on the Blues in a minute. That win was magnificent, I thought. Hasn't made their season, but has definitely saved it. The only rejig I'd do with this finals format is the Brumbies should be hosting that semi-final versus the Chiefs and not the other way round. Look, you lose a quarterfinal at home, there should be consequence for that. Reward is you lose and get another life for finishing first or second in the round robin. That's all fair enough. But the consequence of that quarterfinal loss is you should then go on the road for the semi-final. The Chiefs fluffed their lines on Saturday night, no doubt about it. I thought the Blues did just about enough to deserve to snatch it. Second half in particular, as tough and determined as they played last year when winning it all. To come back and win at the death like that, all those repeat penalties, needing a converted try to do so, that's going to give them a massive jolt of confidence now going to Christchurch. The Chiefs, though, will know they could have and should have been better. Their second half line-out turned into a shambles, and Mackenzie's late penalty miss that could have taken the lead back to a 2-score game also proved ultimately costly. The Blues will be delighted, and rightly so. All season we've been waiting to see if they were more than just a one-shot wonder, if their worse than average campaign could be rescued. Scraping into the top 6 was a toehold, making the semi-finals a statement to say, maybe we weren't as bad as what we've seemed. As for the Hurricanes, they simply weren't good enough. Too many unforced errors on the night. They didn't look anything like the side that won so impressively in Canberra just 6 weeks ago. The Crusaders, meanwhile, were merciless, strangling the Reds on Friday night, and that performance the most dominant from all 3 winning quarterfinalists. They must go into this weekend's semi-finals now as favourites to go on and win their 15th title. 15? And what a redemption story for Rob Penny that would be if they do it. Finally, back to this new finals format, which, despite appearing overcomplicated and perhaps more of an effort to appease the TV broadcasters than try and find the best and fairest way to determine the eventual competition winner, I think deserved its own pass mark. A couple of things that need changing, one being, as earlier stated, this farcical situation where the Chiefs lose and still get to host a semi. The other being the initial scheduling, which should have played the Brumbies-Hurricanes match before the other 2 quarterfinals, just to avoid any potential for that game to be a dead rubber if everything else had gone according to the seedings and the plans. To be fair to the Super Rugby fishheads, though, they do their best, and this year's comp has been as compelling and interesting for an 11-team lineup minus the Saffers as it ever could be. Whoever did the draw pulled off an administrative miracle this year, a scheduling conjuring trick, where for the first 12 weeks, 4 Aussie sides were in the top 6, making it seriously look like the comp had somehow managed to even itself out in 12 months, and the Australians were suddenly super competitive. We now know that was never the case. 3 out of the 4 semi-finals, so once again Kiwi sides with the eventual New Zealand winner seeming as predictable and inevitable as it's always been. Slightly different roundabout way of getting to where A plays B, but the A and the B were more than likely always going to be New Zealand teams.
Devlin.
Time for a tight 5. Lachlan, it's not something that we do as often these days. We used to do it every single day when we're on the radio. This is 5 separate sporting topics du jour. And when the bell goes, reminds us on to the next topic we go.
The tight 5.
We won't be mentioning too much about Stu Wilson. He's going to be covered. The untimely death of the former All Black captain. Very sad news indeed. Tony Johnson on that. Brett McKay on that. And this also David Campese in the long form of this podcast / show, which you can listen to on Rover here on the DSPN YouTube channel. Ryan Fox winning again in Canada. That's 2 wins on the PGA Tour in a matter of weeks. Mark Robinson resigns as New Zealand Rugby CEO. Is the Super Rugby final system fair, Lachlan? Do you think that the Chiefs should be hosting a semi-final after losing that quarter-final at home? The Warriors need not fear anyone in the NRL. All Whites beating Ivory Coast. Best win for our national men's football team in 15 years. And, of course, the French Open final. Yes! We got a lot to get through. Kicking it off with Mark Robinson, though. New Zealand Rugby CEO resigns. Yeah, I just wonder whether or not that with the untimely death of the former All Black captain Stu Wilson, that they may have delayed this a day, New Zealand Rugby. But obviously it was planned that today he pulls the pin and he walks away on a tenure, which I've been incredibly critical of over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't think he's going to go down as one of our great CEOs. In actual fact, I'd like you to name 5 or 6 huge achievements that the man did manage to put together over the last half dozen years that he has been in charge of New Zealand Rugby.
Yeah, look, I can make a lot of jokes about things that he's supposedly done, but I will say this, I can't name any that have been that spectacular. At least in my lifetime. Who's been great? He's been a great CEO. How do you measure a really good CEO? Now, just quickly, in my lifetime. Now, I was born in 1997, so from 1997 until now, I don't know if there's been a CEO who has been outstanding in the role at the time.
Well, how does he leave New Zealand Rugby? I think that's what you've got to ask, you see. And I think New Zealand Rugby is probably in the poorest state that it's ever been. And I think through this tenure that has been really what the legacy Mark Robinson leaves behind. Financially, another loss, that's 7 or 8 out of the last...
Being the devil's advocate, I'm not the biggest Mark Robinson fan, but being the devil's advocate, it was financially struggling before he turned up.
Okay, well, we've got a game where, the grassroots is still struggling. We've got an All Black team that's not winning. We've got a Silver Lake deal, and no one knows where the hell the money's gone for that. And, every time you hear from Mark Robinson, he just seems to speak in tongues. He speaks a lot of management speak and a lot of corporate cliches, and I always wonder when people do that, whether or not they do actually have the confidence and the real actual grasp on what it is they're doing.
It often feels like a cop-out for, I actually don't know what the answer is to this question. I don't know what the answer is.
So, he just speaks about, creative energies and exciting synergies and massive marketing opportunities. It's just all word soup. So, look, nice guy. I got to say that. He's always been really pleasant to deal with, and if you meet him, he is actually a nice guy. But in terms of what he's achieved for New Zealand Rugby, no, I think bring on the next person.
Well,
hopefully they do a better job.
Who's it going to be, and how do they fix the national game?
Don't know.
Because it is struggling.
Well, that's why you appoint a board of people to appoint this person, don't you? Yeah. And those people then accept that responsibility.
Well, I don't think anyone
Mark, thank you for your service, but we will move on, and we'll move on quickly. The French Open tennis final, which I was watching this morning while I was at work. I do the breakfast radio show on the Sound. And this was an incredible match. I only got to see it out of the corner of the eye. Sinner wins the first 2 sets. Sinner has 3 match points in the 4th set. Alcaraz comes back. He's 5-3. He's serving for the set. He bottles that. Sinner comes back. It's 6-all, goes to the tiebreak, and Alcaraz wins it. Match for the ages.
Oh, without a doubt. It was such a contrast through the first 2 sets, and then the next 2, and then the 5th. So Sinner's dominating early on. Alcaraz comes back from the dead out of nowhere, it felt like. And then in the last one, it was just back and forth. They were breaking each other. And then the winner from Alcaraz it felt like an old Federer type of shot where it wrapped around the post. I think it went over, but it felt like he just curled it perfectly.
A free kick.
Yeah, there was no way that Sinner was going to get to it. There's been so many great Grand Slam tennis finals, at least, just isolating the men's for a second. There was the 2019 one between Federer and Djokovic, which was overshadowed for New Zealand, at least, by the Cricket World Cup final, which we don't talk about, in 2019. There was obviously the 08 one between Federer and Nadal. There was a great one in 2020 between Thiem and Zverev, which is kind of forgotten. That was at the US Open.
McEnroe and Borg, I go back that far, mate, 1981.
But this is just without a doubt up there with one of the great modern-day Grand Slam tennis matches, let alone finals.
82 it might have been, actually, that one.
And because I think going into it, I could be wrong, Sinner didn't drop a set, because I think he beat Djokovic in straight sets, didn't he?
Yeah.
So to then be up 2 sets to love as well, you think, geez, this guy's unstoppable right now. Which then you'd start to think, why is he unstoppable? What's been rubbed into his legs? But no, what a match. Incredible. I think that was, there's something special about that from Alcaraz, the way that he just came back from 2 sets to love down. And it also was quite cool because it feels like these are the clear 2 best in the world now, and this is the future that we're watching.
Well, we've
unfold.
got a great rivalry, haven't we? And we've been absolutely luxurious in terms of tennis and the superstars that we've had and been able to watch over the last couple of decades. Fantastic match. Ryan Fox. Well, he wins in. Was it North Carolina or South Carolina a couple of weeks ago? And that was, first win on the PGA Tour. And that got him into the PGA Championship.
He had to win it.
He had to win
it.
And then this weekend he has to finish top 5 to make it into the USA. Or top 3, was it?
Yeah.
Well, he goes into the last day. He's sharing the lead. A couple of shots behind, comes back big time in the back 9, and then it goes to a playoff. And again, we were in the middle of doing this podcast and doing interviews while this was going on. First hole, second hole, third hole, fourth hole, and clinches it. That is just so clutch from Ryan Fox. I mean, what a year he is having at the moment. And this now qualifies him for the US Open. And on this kind of form, he's got to be a chance. I mean, this is the next step for him, isn't it? Only one other person, New Zealand golfer, has won more than once on the PGA Tour, and that's Sir Bob Charles. So he's already in that kind of company. Bob Charles, of course, won the British Open 1963. So now for Ryan, this has got to be the next step. And on this kind of form, well, he's got to be a top 10 chance at least, isn't he?
Well, I can't remember where he placed exactly in the PGA Championship, but he placed pretty well for someone whose form had been very ordinary, and he qualified at the last chance, really. But for lack of a better term, it's a bit uncouth for some, maybe. But he's got absolute balls of steel these last these tournaments to win them, because he's had to do so, or to get into the majors, he's had to win these tournaments or play so highly, and he's gone on to actually do that. When you factor in how poor, with respect, that his form has been for about a year. It's incredible, and it's great. And, it takes him a while to get his first PGA win. Obviously, he wasn't on the tour full time, but, in terms of his age, took him a little bit of time. And then he's got 2 in the matter of, 4 weeks? Incredible.
And also a fantastic sight in the crowd, if you didn't get to see the pictures. Yes! The All Whites, or a fair few of the All Whites, who've just come off beating Ivory Coast 1-0 in the friendly I watched yesterday.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Chris Wood amongst them. He didn't actually play that game, but they were cheering Foxy on as well, so he had a good contingent there. That win for the All Whites, called their best win in 15 years. It's not often we beat teams outside of the Oceania region. And this Ivory Coast side is actually a really good side. They ranked, 60-something in the world, I think, or...
Not sure where they are.
Well, I don't know whether you respect the FIFA rankings outside the top 20.
Like most African nations, they're a pretty good side. They produce some good players.
Well, watching the game yesterday, they dominated. There's no question about that. But an absolutely brilliant goal for New Zealand, finished off by Eli Justice, a superb pass and a superb goal. And it's a really good win. You've got to remember that all of these are pointing towards the World Cup next year. And it's really important that the All Whites start competing against these teams, not just going out there to get a result, but actually trying to win these games. I think this is a really important result.
Yeah, well, you talk about the biggest in 15 years, and the one that I thought that was the previous biggest could be that one 15 years ago when they beat Serbia 1-0.
Just before the 2010 World Cup.
Exactly, yeah. So, no, it's huge in that sense.
It's a really good portent, that really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we did bloody well at that World Cup.
We did, and it's a massive result, because you're right, you need to... If you're going to go to the World Cup and you're going to at least make some noise, you need to be competing against these good sides. And when you're stuck in, I'm just repeating what you said, when you're stuck in Oceania, you don't get to do that much. No, it's a huge result, and this is a team that I won't lie, I'll have doubts about, because I'm not too sure about some of the players. I'm being totally objective here. I'm not totally sold on the coaching group after what went down with Danny Hay, but if they can get results like this, and there's another result that stands out, I think it was against Ireland, maybe end of last year, the year before, where they got a really good draw. They beat they drew with the USA last year, didn't they?
That's right. And again, we were outplayed in that game, but got the result.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, when you add up these results, they're firming as a competitive side, which is great. And obviously, they need to carry that on to the World Cup next year. And Ivory Coast are still trying to qualify for the World Cup, so it's not as if they're just laying down and chilling out and got their feet up like you last week in Queensland.
Warriors need not fear any team at all. Look, these last couple of games, while I've been away, Rabbits and then the Sharks, I thought were two really crucial games that were going to tell us a hell of a lot. Now the bye and then Penrith. Now, Penrith are not going to be easy. Penrith, to me, if the Warriors get over Penrith, who do they fear after that? Obviously, they haven't beaten Melbourne, and obviously they've got to play the Bulldogs, those two teams. But there's nobody else in the NRL at the moment that if you look at it now and say the Warriors are going to play that team, that you wouldn't put the Warriors as favourites against.
No, I thoroughly agree. I tipped in the tipper comp that I have that I think I've managed to make up a bit of ground on thanks to the Broncos win on Saturday.
Oh, they're back, are they?
Did you watch that?
They're back, are they?
No.
Look, I tell you what, I picked up a Courier
a
Mail before I left, and this was on Friday. I think I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah, you did, and I don't want to talk about it.
And it was all the 9 pages worth about problems within the Broncos camp and player revolts and all kinds.
You do that when they lose, and when we start winning, no one's going to be doing that,
When we start winning, one win. No, I think that's the second in 8 or 9 games.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I know. I'll be the first to pump
But let's
the brakes,
talk about the Warriors, though.
Yeah, anyway, to the Warriors. I'm just double checking the schedule here because they've got the bye this week in the Warriors, haven't they?
Yep.
So then they've got the Panthers. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, that means that the Warriors will take on a Penrith team who'll be missing the Panthers players.
Yeah, Origin.
Because of Origin.
Yeah.
Just trying to get my head around that. So it would be an undermanned
Well, no,
Panthers
they'll
side.
come back from Origin is what they'll do. So the
Because
Warriors...
Origin's next Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah, the Warriors don't play this weekend. They get the bye.
So
I
then
all of those guys are going to be playing Origin. Then they're going to have to...
I'd heard from someone else that it was that, but that now you said it makes sense. So apologies, it's the following weekend. But the point is, the Panthers will have a bunch of tired players. I mean, the Warriors...
Having to catch a plane over here.
They're set to get... the Maroons are set to get Kurt Capewell, which means that he'll obviously be a bit more tired for the Warriors. But anyway, in terms of their NRL form and how they've been playing, well, another great win, but a contrasting win to how they've been winning. You know, the Rabbits game was a couple of punches thrown each way by both sides, and it was high scoring, and the Warriors managed to hold off a fast finishing Rabbit side. And then you look at the game this weekend just gone against a Cronulla side that you rate a lot.
I do.
That I don't. They just battered them.
Yeah.
And even when...
I think that's the best game that they've played all year, actually.
They went up 10-0. It might have even been 12 when I can't remember, but they certainly were up 10-0 at one point because I was flicking between that and the rugby. And then Cronulla came back, and I think they were up by 12-10 at one point. It might have been half-time. And then it's very easy there to roll over a little bit. But this is a team that just has some serious resilience about them, that every week we say this, are well-coached, players who work hard, great next man up mentality, which means you've got a really good culture. And they just swung a massive haymaker on the Sharks, and they were just fairly beaten.
So impressive. All right, final. Who's going to be playing the Super Rugby final then? We've done a lot on this on the podcast today, so we don't have to cover it too much. Who's going to win those semi-finals?
I think it's silly to bet against the Chiefs, particularly one that's just lost, and I just don't think the Brumbies are good enough to beat them. They'd have to do what the Blues did. And as much as the Brumbies do like to play a bit of a 10-man style of rugby, they don't really like to venture too far out to the wings. I just don't know if they've got the physicality to be able to do that. The Crusaders Blues game, I honestly think it's a flip of the coin.
Yeah, I think the Blues have got a chance.
I do, because they played very well down there in Christchurch about a month or so. It might have been over a month. I think it was on Anzac Day they played. And the Crusaders, I still am not totally sold on. They haven't had this stretch of 50, 60, 70 minutes where they have suffocated another team. The Chiefs have done it. The Blues can do it if we were looking at last year. There's no point talking about the Hurricanes because they're gone now. And the Brumbies, to an extent, can do it. I just don't think the Crusaders can. I think they rely a little bit too heavily, and look, so you can shoot me down and tell me I'm totally wrong. It's just my opinion. I think they rely a little bit too heavily on game-breaking plays and piling on the scoreboard. And that's how they beat the Blues at Eden Park. And, as a Blues fan, of course,
they're playing with house money.
I'm going to just rate their chances a little bit more than others.
That record has to be broken at some stage. The Crusaders 30-0 at home, Super Rugby playoffs. It's got to go at some stage. Blues will go down there confident. And so they should.
Well, they've had a nothing to lose mentality for a few weeks, and they've got a little bit of momentum. I mean, that Chiefs game, to win it in that fashion was just incredible. It was emphatic. That try was brilliant. The way they held the ball and just worked through the faces at the end.
Yeah, the last 10 minutes they owned the game.
It was steely, very steely.
This is the DSPN.